Hi, I'm Charles Wyke-Smith. I'm here at South by Southwest 2008 here in Austin, and I have the pleasure of chatting today with Robert Hoekman Jr., who's the author of a best-selling PeachpitTV book, Designing the Obvious. He has a new book called Designing the Moment, coming out very shortly. And we're just going to sit here for a while and talk about the weather and what's happening here at South by Southwest. So, hey Robert, it's great to see you again.
Good to see you, Charles. How you doing?
It's been a while. It's good. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
So, what are you getting out of South by Southwest this year? What's happening?
I think the predominant thing for me this year is all the social networking sessions. I noticed last year there was a lot of sort of random themes and stuff like that. It was sort of hard to latch on to kind of a central idea, but I'm really into social networking strategies and things these days, because I'm working on that with clients within my company, and because of that, I'm sort of trying to levitate towards all of those sessions this year. So it's been pretty interesting. I've seen a couple of them so far. There's a few more coming up, so pretty excited about that.
I think the social networking phenomena really began as a personal, an individual thing. Hey, I want to Twitter you, I want to communicate with you, my friend. And now we're starting to see social networking being adopted by corporate America. And I wonder, how are you helping to educate your clients on the power of social networking for their business?
Right, well, that's actually part of what my company does. My company's called Mosquito, and we are actually focusing primarily on nonprofits.
Okay.
And on organizations and commercial companies that are doing socially conscious or socially responsible projects. So basically, one of the things we want to help nonprofits do is to develop a social networking strategy for them, to develop sort of a long tail approach to fundraising, like micro fundraising, instead of relying on like huge grants and stuff like that. We'll actually help them get a social networking strategy in place, a social media strategy, so that they can do sort of a long tail approach and go to individual donors with small donations, much in the way that some of the politicians this year have been funding their campaigns.
Obama's been very successful
in
that
exactly.
respect.
It's a very, very similar strategy to what I'm talking about. A lot of nonprofits have picked up on that strategy lately, and especially probably in the past year or so, and that's something I think we can really help nonprofits with. So that's mostly what I'm interested in. I mean, I've got a pretty good sense of it myself about how to do it, how to teach it, how to do things like that. But I'm really excited about the social networking related sessions at South by this year, so that I can sort of get some new insights, get some ideas from other people. So
yeah, it would make sense that social networking and non-profits, which are essentially social entities, would really do well out of that. People naturally gravitate to that.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting conundrum, because a lot of non-profits, I think, they have really strong member bases and large member bases, and they have all these different techniques that they use to get awareness out and things like that, but they don't necessarily always do a great job of building those relationships and keeping those relationships long-lasting, and social networking offers a great ability to do that, to stay in much more frequent communication with those member bases, and to build deeper and longer-lasting relationships, and to use that not only to drive funding, but also to take the more active people and teach them how to go out and correct mistakes on news stories and on blogs and things like that, to raise awareness, to correct inaccuracies on the news, just do all sorts of things. You can actually put your network to work for you.
That's right, and I think before we've seen this thing where the web has connected you with customers one-on-one individually, and now you say, well, how do I aggregate them and let them all communicate with each other?
Exactly.
And be an entity that's actually a working organism on your behalf, and I think that's something I've heard a lot about here.
Yeah, it's one of the more fascinating ideas, I think, actually, about social networking, is that unlike computer networks, which get slower and weaker as they grow, social networks actually get stronger. They grow exponentially. If you add a third person to a two-person network, it doesn't just increase by one connection, it increases like a whole bunch of times. And I just actually heard this figure a couple of days ago in a session, where basically you add like 100 people to a social network, and there's something like 250 different possible connections that can be made between them, and it grows so much. And yeah, it's just such a remarkable thing. So your connection ability actually grows exponentially with each new member. So your network gets incredibly strong the more people you add to it, and if you're using it to build those relationships and to really stay in touch with the people that are part of your network, then you can really do some amazing things with it. I mean, I actually think it's had a lot to do with how well Designing the Obvious has sold, and I think it has a lot to do with how some of the presidential candidates again have been so successful with their fundraising campaigns this year, and how some of the more tech savvy nonprofits out there are having a lot of success. There's an organization called the Best Friends Network, and it's basically like an animal shelter type group. Okay. And they've got this big ranch out in the desert in Utah by the Grand Canyon, and basically their site has a lot of social media, social networking type tools going for it, and they are one of the most well-funded groups around. Like, you know, when they rescue animals, they can do whatever it takes to help the animals because they're just so well-funded, and they have this great, you know, very, very strong network, a good relationship with their network. And so they just constantly are being able to fund themselves very, very well. And so they can do anything they need to.
So do you find examples like that make it easier to sell this kind of thinking to your clients?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean,
are they receptive? Are they receptive to that kind of?
Yeah, Best Friends Network is actually a really great case study. Barack Obama's campaign is a really great case study. You can point to things like that and say, look, they've raised millions and millions of dollars off of donations that are $100 or less. You know, it's a pretty amazing thing. And it's actually really easy to sell that to nonprofits. It's kind of a different situation for us because we don't necessarily have to chase down commercial projects and like try to compete for them. What we do is because we help these nonprofits with micro fundraising and with social networking and stuff like that, we can actually pick a nonprofit that we like and that we want to work with and we want to help. And we can go talk to them and say, well, here's all the things we think we can do for you. And invariably, they're like, hey, that's fantastic, let's do it. And so, you know, and then we try to get some things in place to help drive the funding for that.
Now, that's a really interesting, let me drill down on that a bit. So you're saying it's good policy as a small design house to identify clients you want to work with and go and tell them why it's so great that they should be working with you. I think that's a proactive approach.
I am saying exactly that. It's a fantastic way to go. There are a lot of companies that, you know, go after the small fish until maybe they build up their portfolio, and that's definitely a good approach. I mean, it's a pretty well proven approach, but yeah, I mean, if you've already got some stuff in your bag that you can show off that's good and it's strong, and you can put together a good pitch, seek out the clients that you want to work with. Put together a client wish list, and go figure out how to connect with someone within that organization and talk to them and tell them your story and tell them what you think you can do for them. Bring them ideas, and a lot of times it just works fantastically. In our case, with nonprofits, they're just like head over heels. They're like, wow, this company just swooped in and they want to do all this great stuff for us. Fantastic, let's go. So we've sort of taken the competitive factor, the competition factor out of our equation.
Right.
We don't have to chase after companies and put in bids and do all this crazy stuff.
Respond to RFPs and be there with 10 other companies trying to get the work.
Yeah, we're not fighting with 10 other companies because there's nobody doing that. So we're going to them and we're saying we'd like to do all this work for you. And we're gonna help you raise the money to do it, and they're very, very receptive to it. So.
I think that's great advice for small design companies.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And with micro fundraising, I mean, you can not just with micro fundraising, but with social networking, you can draw a lot of attention not only to yourself but also to the clients you're working with.
For sure.
And you know, increase their business along the way. So there's all sorts of stuff you can do.